Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm really excited about today's lesson because we are tackling one of those grammar points that sounds intimidating, the plusquamperfect or the plus perfect. But once it clicks, it's actually one of the most logical tenses in the entire German language. Think of today's lesson as the past of the past. If you have already got a handle on the praterium and the perfect, your everyday past tenses, this lesson is going to slot in perfectly because the Pluscam Perfect doesn't allow ask you to learn a whole new skill. It just asks you to combine two things you already know and use them to talk about order. What happened first and what happened after that. By the end of this video, you will be able to build the Plusquamperfect from scratch, know exactly when to use it, and avoid the single most common mistake learners make with it. I have also made a practice hub for this lesson so that you can get practical. Let's get into it. So let's start with the big picture. Look at this timeline. Plusquamperfect, praterium, present, prior past, recent past, and now. Here's the core idea I want to hold onto for the whole lesson. German and English sometimes need to talk about two past events at once and needs a way to make it crystal clear which one happened first. That's the entire job of the plusquamperfect. It's not a fancier fast tense, it's more formal or more polite. It's a sequencing tool. In English, we actually do this all the time with the word had. Compare I ate breakfast versus I had eaten breakfast before I left the house. That little word had is doing exactly what the plusquamperfect does in German. It reaches one step further back in time. Keep that English had in your head today because it is going to be your best friend for recognizing when you need this tense. This slide lays out the three tenses side by side with real examples, and I want you to really study this because it's the mental model for the whole lesson. Plus, Plusquamperfect. Action A. The prior past. Ich hatte gegessen. I had eaten. Praterium or perfect. Action B. The recent past. A narrative anchor. Dan going is lost. Then I left. Presence now. The present status. Ich bin here. I am here. Notice the storytelling shape here. Action A already happened before our story even starts. Action B is where the actual narrative begins. This is usually written in praterium in books or and articles or perfect in speech. And then presence is simply now. So the golden rule is this. The Plusquamperfect always needs a partner. It never stands completely alone. It exists specifically to say this happened before that other past thing I am about to tell you about. Hold that thought, we'll come back to it. Now let's get a little technical. But don't worry, this is the only vocabulary word you will need today. For Eistischkeit, it literally means before timeness, the quality of happening earlier. The rule on screen says it clearly. The plusquamperfect is used exclusively when one past action is completed entirely before another past action begins. It acts like a strict temporal anchor, giving you zero ambiguity about the order of events. Think about why this matters. In English, if I just say I ate, you left, you can usually guess the order from the sequence order alone. But German doesn't want you to guess. German wants the grammar itself to tell you the order, even if you scramble the sentence around. That's the whole beauty of this tense. It removes ambiguity by baking the sequence directly into the verb form. Here's the construction. And I promise you, if you know the perfect tense, you already know 90% of this. The formula is auxiliary verb in praterium plus participe to. That's it. Compare this to the regular perfect tense, where you use haben or sein in the present tense plus the principal, like ich habe gemacht. For the plusquamperfect, you just shift that auxiliary one step further back into the praterium. So ich habe gemacht becomes ich hatte gemacht. Same participle, same sentence structure, just an older, more pushed back helper verb. So, if you can already form the perfect tense confidently, today's lesson is really just one small swap. Now, which helper verb do you use? Hatte or war? Good news. The rules are identical to the ones you already learned for the perfect tense. Nothing new to memorize here. Just apply the same logic. Look at the flowchart. Ask yourself, is this action sequential? Does it involve movement from point A to point B or a real change of state? Verbs like gehen to go, sterben to die of waken to wake up. These describe motion or a fundamental change, and they take war or waren. Everything else, static actions and especially transitive verbs that take a direct object like sn, maken, sen, those take hate haten. Quick gut check. If you can put a direct object after the verb ishate, then very good listen. I had read the report. That's basically always a hate verb. Let's drill the conjugation of haten across all persons because you need this to be automatic. Ish hate, du hatest, es hate, wir haten, ihr hatet, z or z haten. Notice the pattern. It's the same endings you already know from every other Platinum word. No ending for each and as yes, st for do, en for where, and z, t for ihr, ear. Example in full. Ich hatte gemacht. I have made done. Du hattest gemacht. You have made or done. Say these out loud with me a couple of times if you are following along. Repetition really is what makes this stick. Now the same drill, but for our movement and change of state. Auxiliary sign in its praetorian form. Ich war, du warst, es war, wir waren, ihr wart, sie waren, and pair with a participle. Ich war gegangen. I had gone. Wir waren gegangen. We had gone. One quick memory trick. Hatte on and war are actually the exact same praetorian forms you would use for simple past tense sentences like Ich hatte hunger, which means I was hungry, or Ich war müde, means I was tired. You are not learning brand new words today. You are just recombining forms you may already recognize. Before we go further, a quick refresher on participle 2 because it's the very second half of every Plusquamperfekt sentence. Weak verbs are the predictable regular ones. Formula GE plus 10 plus T. Machen, gemacht. Kaufen, gekauft. Spielen, gespielt. Strong verbs change their stem vowel and always end in en. These are the irregular ones you just have to memorize over time. Gehen, gegangen. Lesen, gelesen. Trinken, getrunken. If you have done your earlier lessons on the perfect tense, this table should feel completely familiar, and that's exactly the point. The plusquamperfect doesn't introduce new participles, it reuses every participle you already know. Here's the structural concept that's essential for German word order in general, not just this tense. The Satzklammer or sentence bracket. Picture that lamp's graphic on screen. The auxiliary verb hatte or war sits in the second position of the sentence, what we call the V2 position. The participle then gets pushed all the way to the very end of the clause. Everything else in this sentence, object, time, expressions, adverbs, get sandwiched in between these two verb pieces. For example, hatte gestern das Buch schnell gelesen. Notice how hatte clamps the front, gelesen clamps the back, and the entire rest of the sentence content sits inside the bracket. This is one of the most distinctive features of German sentence structure, and the plusquamperfect is a great example to practice it with. Now, let's talk about the word that triggers the plusquamperfect more than any other. Nachdem, meaning after. Nachdem is a subordinating conjunction, which means two important things happen when you use it. First, it inherently sets up a sequence. One thing happens after which another thing happens. Second, like all subordinating conjunctions in German, it kicks the verb to the very end of the clause. So nachdem doesn't just mean after in a loose sense. Grammatically, it forces the clause it introduces into the earlier prior past position on our timeline. Whenever you see or want to use nachdem, your brain should immediately think plusquamperfect is probably needed here. This is the rule that trips up even intermediate learners. So listen closely. If your main clause, the narrative action, is in the praetorium, then the accompanying nachdem clause must shift back to the plusquamperfect. You can't have both clauses in the same tense when nachdem is involved. German insists on showing the time gap grammatically. So the pattern is always nachdem plus plusquamperfect plus praetorium or perfect main clause. Keep this pairing in mind. It's going to make the next two examples very easy to understand. So let's put it all together with a real sentence. Nachdem angekommen war, began thus meeting pünktlich. After he had arrived, the meeting began on time. Walk through the logic with me. Uncommon, to arrive, is a movement verb from not here to here. So it takes the sign auxiliary war. The Nachdem clause therefore reads Nachdem er angekommen war. Notice war sits at the very end. Because this is a subordinate clause, so both verb parts cluster together at the end. Then the main clause flows normally in the praterium, began thus meeting Punktlich. This is a textbook example of the whole lesson in one sentence. Arrival happens first, the meeting happens second, and the grammar makes the order unmistakable. Now compare that to a non-movement example. Nachdem er gegessen hatte, schrieb er den Bericht. After he had eaten, he wrote the report. Assent to eat isn't movement or a change of state. It's a regular transitive style action. So it takes hatte. Nachdem er gegessen hatte. Again, both verb parts land at the end of the subordinate clause. Then the main clause. Schreib er the Bericht in the simple praterium. Put these two case studies side by side in your notes. One with var, one with hatte, and one you have basically got a template you can reuse for almost any Nachdem sentence you will ever need to build. Quick but important detail. Separable verbs. With verbs like aufstehen, to get up, the gay marker of the participle gets wedged neatly between the separable prefix and the root verb. Example, er war aufgestanden. He had gotten up. Notice, aufgestanden. The prefix of splits open just enough to let ge slide in. And then the root gestanden attaches right after. This is exactly the same rule you would apply for the regular perfect tense. Nothing new here. Just make sure you don't accidentally forget the ge or misplace it. Ge. Now the opposite case. Certain prefixes actually block the ge marker entirely. These are be, were, air, ge, miss, there, emp, ent. All of them. Take vergessen, to forget. It would be tempting to write hatte vergessen, but that's incorrect. The correct form is simply hatte vergessen. He had forgotten. No gay prefix at all, because where already blocks it. This is a really common small mistake if you take one thing from this slide. Whenever a verb starts with one of these 8 prefixes, do not add ge to the participle. Do not add ge to the participle in any past tense. One more consistency check. And this one's nice and easy. Verbs ending in ieren like studieren, probieren, diskutieren never take the ge prefix either in any perfect family tense. So ich habe studiert in the perfect becomes ich hatte studiert in the Plusquamperfekt. Same rule, same missing ge, just an older auxiliary. If you have internalized this rule from the regular perfect tense already, there's genuinely nothing new to learn here. It straightly goes over and carries over. Now, model verbs müssen, können, wollen, and so on behave a little bit differently when they are combined with another main verb. So, pay close attention here. When a model verb and a main verb appear together, we abandon the standard participle to form for the modal. Instead, both verbs stack at the end of the clause in their plain infinitive form. This is called the double infinitive. Example, er hatte gestern. Example, er hatte gestern nach Haus gehen müssen. He had to go home yesterday. Notice, gehen stays as a plain infinitive and müssen instead of becoming gemusst also stays as a plain infinitive right at the very end. This double infinitive construction shows up in the perfect tense too. So if that already felt familiar, you're in good shape. Nachdem isn't the only trigger. Let's talk about before, meaning before, because it flips the logic in an interesting way. While Nachdem pushes the main action forward in time, before brings the dependent clause into the later position instead. So with before, the main clause becomes the prior action, Plusquamperfekt, and the before clause becomes the subsequent action, praterium. Example: Before er das Dokument absendet, hatte er es noch einmal gelesen. Before he sent the document, he had read it one more time. Notice the roles had swapped compared to our Nachdem examples. reading Plusquamperfekt happened first. Chronologically, but grammatically, it's now sitting in the main clause. Because Bever is describing the later event, the sending. This takes a bit of the practice to get comfortable with, so don't worry if you need to pause and rewatch this section. Let's talk about the single biggest mistake learners make: overusing the plusquamperfect. Remember our golden rule from earlier. This tense only exists in relation to another past point. If you are just describing an isolated event with no sequencing involved, stick with praterium or perfect. Only reach for the plusquamperfect when you specifically need to show that one event happened before another one you are also mentioning. A simple gut check. Ask yourself, would I insert the English word had here? And does it change the meaning? If yes, plusquamperfect for you. If plain simple past would say the exact same thing, you probably don't need it. One nice thing about this tense: unlike the strict divide between praterium, which leans written and formal, and perfect, which leans spoken and casual, the plusquamperfect cuts across both registers freely. You will hear it in everyday conversations just as naturally as you will read in a formal report or a novel anywhere. Establishing a clear chronological sequence actually matters to the story. So there's no need to worry about, is this too formal for texting a friend? If the sequence matters, the plusquamperfect fits right in. Let's zoom back out and see the full picture in a mini three-step story, tying together everything we have covered. First, plusquamperfect. A hatte gearbeitet. He had work. Then praterium. Dan varlis das bureau. Then he left the office. Now presence. Und jetzt du zu Haus. And now he is home. This is genuinely how native speakers layer time when telling a story. Reaching one step into the past to set the scene, then moving to the main narrative, then landing in the present. Once this rhythm feels natural, you have truly internalized the plusquamperfect. Time to practice. I'm going to give you 5 perfect tense sentences, and I want you to mentally shift each auxiliary back into the plusquamperfect. Pause the video if you want a moment to think. Okay, so here are the answers. Ich habe gesehen means it will change to Ich hatte gesehen. Du bist gegangen. It will be du warst gegangen. Wir haben gelacht means wir hatten gelacht. Sie ist geblieben means sie war geblieben in Plusquamperfekt. Er hat verstanden means er hatte verstanden. How did you do? If you got most of these, you have got the mechanical formation down solid. Now let's practice choosing when to use it based on two events in sequence. Scenario 1: Event A: the presentation finished. Event B: the client arrived. Nachdem die Präsentation den hatte, kam der Kunde an. The presentation ending happened first, so it gets the plusquamperfect. Scenario 2: Event A: he read the report. Event B: he wrote the email. Nachdem den Bericht gelesen hatte, schrieb the email. Same logic, reading came first, so hatte gelesen takes the earlier slot and scribe, the writing stays in simple praterium. Practice board drills use hatte here. A good reminder that hatte covers the vast majority of verbs and var is really reserved for the smallest set of movement and change of state verbs. Let's wrap up with a simple 5 step checklist. You can run through any time you are unsure whether the plusquamperfect belongs to a sentence. Number 1: identify the sequence. Are there genuinely two distinct sequential past events? Number 2: apply was it a kite. The earlier event gets the plusquamperfect as your temporal anchor. 3. Choose the auxiliary, hatte or were, using the same logic as the perfect tense. 4. Check the participle too. Weak, strong, or one of those gay blocking exceptions. 5. Construct the Satzklammer. Auxiliary in V2 position, participle all the way at the end. Run through these 5 steps and you will rarely go wrong with these tense. Now, Let's check out our assessment practice hub. That's it for today's lesson on the Plusquamperfekt. Now let's check out our assessment practice hub to end this. So this is the practice hub for lesson 9 here. Already you can see a time here which is praterium, which means future, presence is the perfect tense, and the plusquamperfekt is the past tense here. So if you click on the start practicing button, there'll be a first drill. So if you click on verb and if you think it will go in war or hatten, you have to click in the boxes below after clicking on the verb, and then it will go to the correct ones. Then here there is a drill 2, force the participle, where you need to type the correct participle to for each infinitive, and then you have to hit check right here. Watch for the weak strong pattern, GE blocking prefixes, and then the IEREN exception right here. Clamp the sentence together. Drill 3. So you need to click the word chips in the correct order to rebuild the German sentence. So here we have already written. So these are the sentence formations. Then Nachdem before, where it's a fill in the blanks. You need to choose one in the three options and they must be correct, wrong based on the question provided here. And there is a challenge which is timed for 60 seconds. If you click on here, there will be two options, two or three options, and there will be fast questions. You have to answer it fast. And here is the mechanism where you can review the formula that I said in the video. You can see choosing hatte versus war, everything in the video that is covered in this hub. So, if this clicked for you, the best next step is to simply start noticing had in your own English sentences this week and try translating a few into German using Nachdem or before. Drop your practice sentences in the comments. I will check in and give feedback. If you found this helpful, hit like, subscribe, and the rest of the German tense series. And I will see you in the next lesson. Bis bald.